Hello dear tea friends from around the world. Welcome to a new tea class with me, Stéphane Erler, the founder of the Tea Masters blog and the tea-masters.com tea boutique. This class is like usual brought to you by my tea boutique, where I have an excellent selection of teas from Taiwan and Yunnan, a collection of pu'er, but also spring, very fresh green teas from Sanxia. This is the first batch harvested in the spring. Actually, it's even harvested slightly before spring, early March, before the official countdown to spring. And I have the last batch of spring high mountain oolong. This one is from Darjeeling, the highest peak, the highest tea garden in Taiwan. So I'm very glad that I start with the earliest spring tea and I finish with the last one. And in between, there are lots of excellent teas from high mountains like Aishan, Shaninshi, Cuifeng, Lishan, Fushoshan, and also roasted oolongs from Dongding, and of course Baozhongs from the Wenshan area. And these are the teas that we are studying this semester, a bit more focusing on them. But we do this today, a little pause in our Baozhong classes because it is the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival. It's a full moon tomorrow. It's a time for barbecue, family gatherings, and also for poetry. Yeah? If you remember, maybe in The Dream of the Red Chamber, the famous Chinese novel, on the full moon of the Mid-Autumn Festival, the family was gathered in the garden and watching at the moon, and everybody made a poem, and the best poet, of course, got a lot of acclaims, and this is quite fitting that we would do literature and tea today, and we do this combination thanks to Émile Zola's La joie de vivre, The Joy of Living, his novel, the part of the Rougon-Macquart saga, this French family during the mid to end of the 19th century in France, maybe during the Second Empire. And it's quite interesting to see these different families evolve, and thanks to tea we learn a lot about them. So because tea is not always featured very prominently in these books, I'm analyzing all the beverages that we find in each of these novels. So in this novel, again, I've counted how many times we find each beverage. In this book, we have 45 mentions of non-alcoholic beverages, 27 of alcoholic beverages, and 8 of medicine. This is a new category. Before it was not so necessary, but I found that in this book there's a lot of question about disease and death, and so there were at least 8 mentions of medical beverages, so I put them a little bit apart. And there are 2 metaphors, again, that are quite interesting. The number 1 beverage in this novel is water, seawater, marshmallow water, warm water, or plain water. And this shows that we are close to the sea, with the seawater, and we are also in a rather poor family. They have a high social standing. The father of the family, Mr. Chanteau, is mayor of the small village, but it's really a very, very small village. He does not get much income from his position. His only income comes from his investments. In the 19th century, people would invest in in bonds, they would yield 4%, and with this little money, he would be able to live, and a bit meagerly, but apparently it's enough to drink tea, because tea comes in number 2 with 13 mentions, showing that they try to keep up appearances. They copy this lifestyle product, imported product from the aristocrats, but they don't use it the same way. There is no tea gathering. When we see the priest and the doctor come to visit this family and entertain them, it is around a meal, not around just tea. So we can see from this that in the countryside, people like real robust meals better than simple tea with pastries, and they would be also hard pressed to find pastries in their local and surroundings, since it's only a few fishermen who live nearby. Then we have, of course, wine with 11 mentions. We are in France after all, so even in north or in south of France, wine is a very popular drink. And then we already have milk, also with 11 mentions, if we count 4 mentions of café au lait, coffee with milk. And this is quite astounding that coffee only got 4 mentions. This shows that really this place, they live in a place where there are no coffee shops where they could go to drink coffee, and that this family really prefers to drink tea rather than coffee. I think this shows also that their lifestyle is much more relaxed, slow, whereas we find more coffee in towns, of course in Paris, but also in Plassans in the early books of this saga. Plassans being more like Aix-en-Provence, and so coffee is more drink for people who are very active and need energy sometimes. Tea maybe is more suitable for a relaxed lifestyle. Then there are a few other mentions to other beverages, like 4 for Calvados. Calvados is the local whiskey. I think it's made from apples. We have 3 for Quinquina. That's also kind of a medical wine. It has some quinine inside. 2 for liquors, 2 for Burgundy, 1 for Chartreuse, 1 for Curaçao. And biscuit, morphine, potion, walnut stain, broth, herbal tea, poison, laudanum, and linden. So here we hear also some teas and or herbal teas that are more soothing for medical reasons. I will soon get to the metaphors, but before that I wish to drink a tea that I think is quite suitable for this story. So I'm first preheating my teapot. What tea would be suitable? Of course, in these times they would drink red tea first. This is the tea that was most appreciated by the British, and then also in the rest of France. For these tea gatherings with pastries, red tea also is more suitable for pairing. The sweetness of the pastries goes well with red tea or fully oxidized tea. But here I wanted to stress more 2 things that we learn in the first chapter, where tea is mentioned 6 times. We see that they are drinking tea in the evening, so this tea seems to be quite light because they're not afraid of not being able to sleep after drinking this tea in the evening. However, they mentioned that it has to be served. Oh, should I serve it now? Asked Lazar, his mother. Otherwise, it will be getting cold. And what is left unsaid is, if it's cold, it's not very drinkable anymore. Then it loses its charm. So these teas that are weather weak and that are best drunk hot are usually lower quality leaves. That makes sense, and especially cheaper teas. This makes sense since they don't have a large income to live on, and they drink tea maybe more of a habit and to have some appearance of living a large life, having a servant, but actually we know from the book that their financial means are very, very limited. So the tea I'm using, hope already inside, is my best value oolong. It's the Jinshuan High Mountain Oolong from Juefeng, harvested on April 5th, 2025. And what is interesting, it is harvested by hand, so which means really high quality for the harvest by hand. Harvest in the spring may turn into a High Mountain Oolong, and being very affordable, and it's a Jinshuan. This also makes it more affordable, and Jinshuan is also easier to brew and won't become very bitter, so it's also less powerful in terms of taste and in terms of aftertaste, so it's maybe also better for the evening. Let's brew it, making the leaves turn, and voila. And of course, like most teas, it can be brewed several times. Maybe this is also what they are doing to make their tea in the evening less aggressive, that they would drink the same tea from morning to the evening, and in the evening it does not matter, it won't make you sleepless, since all the caffeine came out in the first brews during the day. So maybe this is another explanation why they would not be concerned to drink tea in the evening. And so the 6 mentions of tea in the first chapter help us better understand what kind of family we have. Madame Chanteau really tries to keep up appearances. She does so by taking in Pauline, an orphan, whose parents we saw in Le Ventre de Paris, an earlier novel of Zola. And her parents had a butcher's shop. They were quite successful with this shop, and since she's young and orphan, she inherited a large fortune from them, but she cannot touch it until she turns 21, and the family at first vows, okay, we will never touch her fortune, but when she proposes, even underage, to use it, they were quite willing to take her money, and this is a little bit the whole tragedy of this novel, of this story, that she's been taken advantage of, and to see how she reacts. This is also a novel that was written shortly after Émile Zola's mother died, and in his novel he shows the death of Madame Chanteau. Later he also shows the death of the dog Mathieu, who painfully dies in his own blood. Really terrible scenes of pain and agony. So why is it called the joy of living? There's so much suffering in this book. Here we see that Zola has some sense of humor, or at least sarcasm, but also maybe it makes sense because Pauline, this orphan, really for each tragedy that happens, she tries to do her best, and she takes it like it comes, and feels already happy that she was there, that she did her best, and she feels, okay, this is enough for me. I can, if I'm unhappy, if I show an unhappy face, it's not going to make the things better. On the contrary, people are going to lose faith, lose hope. So why not uh, be more happy and joyful, and always smile? Anyway, life is quite nice in the countryside. The people I love are around me. She tries not to think that they're also taking advantage of her. Sometimes it's a bit difficult, and she has to face sometimes this reality. But all in all, maybe this is the real meaning of this title, The Joy of Life. Now, there are two beverages that are metaphorical, and I found quite interesting. In chapter 8, I'm going to read the translation that was provided by me, by ChatGPT again. This book, I read it in French, I don't have it in English. And so the translation goes like this. It was an old glove, forgotten by Louise, which he had just found behind a pile of books. The glove, made of Saxony leather, had kept a strong scent, that distinctive wild animal smell, which the young girl's favorite perfume, heliotrope, softened with a touch of vanilla. And, being highly sensitive to scents, violently disturbed by this mixture of flower and flesh, he remained beside himself, the glove pressed to his mouth, drinking in the voluptuousness of his memories. So the beverage here is the voluptuousness of his memories, la volupté de ses souvenirs. Now, this scene where Lazare, the son of Madame Chanteau, is smelling a glove and remembers through this smell the perfume and the presence of Louise, a girl that he has a bit tried to chase, where there has been some seduction going on. This actually reminds me very much of another scene from a very famous French novel, and it became almost a meme at the time. It's The Madeleine of Proust, where the simple scent of a Madeleine drank with some tea reminded Marcel Proust of his childhood, and then he writes lots and lots of memories about it, that it recreated a whole universe for him just smelling this Madeleine. I think here we have something very similar, and it's interesting how two writers in France at maybe 40 years apart would write about such similar scene where memories are triggered by sense. And they do this before modern medicine in the 20th century would indeed validate their hypothesis that the place for memories in the brain is the same place as for sense. That's why there are so many connections between our sense and our memories. And this very simple, affordable Jinshuan tastes just superb, very refreshing, very sweet, easy to drink. The leaves have opened very nicely, and I drink it without any risk of not falling asleep tonight. Another metaphor is, no, I know she'd pass my brandy. I'd gladly give you bread, and even then, I'm sure you'll sell it just to drink the money. So here, every Saturday, Pauline has a meeting with the poor kids of the village. They come to ask for alimony, and she judges everybody's behavior, gives them advice, tries to see what is more fitting, and one of them would like to have alcohol. This kid is already an alcoholic, and because the parents are also alcoholic, Pauline is very much aware of it, and she said, "No, I'm not going to give you anything, not even bread, because even if I would give you bread, you would sell it to purchase alcohol with it. So I'd rather not give you anything, because otherwise I would only help you with your alcohol addiction, and I don't want to push you down this path." So here it's interesting that the beverage is money. You would drink the money, and this is actually a metaphor that is also that we can also apply on what happened to her money, the money that she received from her parents, and that the family Chanteau swallowed through bad investments, aborted projects, and it's yeah. So here she describes something that actually happened to her, that her money was swallowed. Well, so we saw in the chapter 1, that there were lots of mentions of tea that help us better understand the social standing of this family. There are little bourgeoisie trying to pretend that they are maybe a little bit richer than they actually are. They do have a servant, but at that time labor was very cheap. People were almost sometimes willing to be servants or slaves in order to have a house over their head. So this actually does show that life in France was quite difficult, and if you just had a little bit of money, you could already afford a little bit of tea and lead a simpler, easy life without too much work. Then we see in this second chapter that in the two mentions of tea happens to be mentioned at times, at critical times in the novel, in the history, when or in the story, when Pauline agrees to give part of her money to help the family. So tea is really not used as for social gathering, but it's a drink, a beverage that they drink readily, very often. And it's even drank, we see in chapter 7, during tragedies. When she served tea, Veronique announced that the Hutler house and 5 others were already down. This time, half the village would be lost. Suddenly, around 9 o'clock, just after the tea had served, Pauline exclaimed, "But there he is, poor Mathieu, the poor dog who is going to die." So even as things are getting bad, they are drinking tea, and these tragedies unfold. Tea does not seem to bring much comfort. It's just there because they drink it so often, I think. And So there is, or maybe we can see that it's a contrast between life going on by drinking tea, having some pleasure, little pleasures in life, but at the same time tragedies strike. Some people lose their houses, the dog dies. Uh, so the tragedy of life, at one point you are lucky, you drink good tea, and the next moment a tragedy might hit you, or might hit your dog or your neighbor. So maybe you have to take life with philosophy, enjoy it when it's good, and when it's bad, well, don't cry about it, because there's nothing to be done about spilt milk. Just work on it. This is a little bit the attitude of Pauline, and so it does have some deeper meaning, maybe for us, if we want to look about what this story can teach us. And on chapter 9, the last mention of tea is, when the tea was served, he simply let out a big sigh of satisfaction. Here it is the father, Chanteau, the mayor of the village. He is afflicted by gout. He's he spends almost the whole story in pain. Each time he eats a bit too well, he has an attack, a gout attack, and then he screams so much it hurts. They did not have much good medicine at that time to calm the pain. And in this moment, he was not in pain, but satisfaction when tea was served. So maybe this is what I just mentioned, this philosophy of taking life as it is, enjoying the good time when it's good, and if it's bad, then plow through, work on it, and keep on smiling, because crying does not help. Okay, with this, I wish you a wonderful Mid-Autumn Moon Festival. Watch the moon, make poetry, and drink good tea. We will see each other next week again for another tea lesson. This time we continue with our Wenshan Baozong. Thank you. Bye bye.